Only one game matching ranked opponents on this first Saturday of October, which means only one thing. Somebody is going to get it in the ear hole when they least expect it, and they won't even be bailed out by a targeting foul. Rece Davis, Pete Thamel, and Stanford Steve here to make your life a little better by picking the winners and winners only, he said facetiously, because we know there is always risk involved. But you know what's not risky? Subscribing so that you never miss a single episode of the College GameDay podcast, or download this podcast wherever you prefer to get your podcast. We're going to make some picks today, guys. And also, those of you watching on YouTube, we invite you to leave your comments. Keep them clean, please, because we live in a civil society. Well, we used to live in a civil society, and we should be proper. So be nice, but be disagreeable if you want to be in terms of who we pick. Steve, you are on a heater. Now, your podcast record is sub 500, but your College GameDay roll is just absolutely astonishing.
Yeah, I'm looking at the records. The biggest penalty is me showing up every week. You know, Thamel gets a week off here. You get a week off here. You know, I'm the only guy here, and the tally is added up on me in the wrong direction. But, you know, we're still here. We're staying in the fight. That's all. We're here for the camaraderie.
So there aren't many marquee games in terms of ranked versus ranked. There's no Alabama, Georgia on the schedule. There's no Ohio State, Oregon, as we'll have next week, or Texas, Oklahoma. But that means somebody's going to get it. They always do. And College GameDay, perhaps in a bit of an upset, is headed to Berkeley for the first time to see the sturdy Golden Bears of Cal against Miami. Mostly there because Miami narrowly avoided getting clipped by Virginia Tech last week. They're at home as a 10-point underdog. Cal is a home 10-point underdog to Miami. And I'm looking forward to getting out there. I think the crowd's going to be phenomenal. And it also feels like maybe one of those places where Miami could go in and run into a buzzsaw. Now, Cam Ward has played this Justin Wilcox style of defense a couple of times, and he's had some turnovers. So, Pete Thamel, as you think about us headed to Berkeley, beautiful Berkeley, where the Calgorithm people on the X machine have given me great eating recommendations. Looking forward to getting out there. Steve, as a Stanford man, will break out in hives as soon as he sets foot on Tightwad Hill, I'm sure. Who do you like in this game? You like Miami or Cal?
So there's a 10-point spread, but the line I'm really interested in is the over-under on how many times Stanford Steve gets booed during our show.
Hey, Steve, you have no guts whatsoever if you don't run out there. You were number 82 at Stanford, weren't you?
Yes.
Come out there in that 82 Stanford jersey. That would just be awesome.
Mesh
really
Riddell, let's go.
Yeah. Just come out there.
Rece, that there's two things, okay? The jersey definitely doesn't fit anymore, and also there's one that's framed because it's the one I wore in the Rose Bowl. So that is up on the wall. I can take a picture for the people of Berkeley because it's been a really long time since they visited down there. So we got plenty of ammo. I did.
Pete, let's call the Stanford equipment people.
I was thinking helmet. I would wear the helmet.
Okay, wear the helmet. Let's size up a little bit.
I'm wearing nothing but Stanford.
Cardinal pants. Let's go.
They have this thing, Rece, I know you're with the Calgorithm people now. I don't know what it is, but I just remember, you know, when we would play at Cal and there would be a Stanford fan walking around the stadium, like they all run up to him and do like the Duke player, the camera crane. Yeah. It's something like that where it's like pointing at, you know, look at the guy in the wrong colors. So they have their stuff. I can't wait. I had nothing but good times there. Was undefeated against them, so I know the shifts have changed. I've gotten plenty of messages about if I need to see the axe. It is on campus in Berkeley, so it'll be fun. It's always been fun. I think the guys and gals will get a kick out of the creativity that Berkeley brings to the table. It always comes to fruition, and now they have, it's scary. They don't have this platform a lot, there's not a lot of history. There's not a lot of success, but now they have the platform, and I can't wait to see what they do. I expect them to be excellent all weekend and especially Saturday.
not much history, not much success. How dare you blaspheme the names of Steve Bartkowski and Chuck Muncie? Anyway, I interrupted your selection, Pete. I apologize for that.
So it's
Please
okay.
proceed.
We need to have a little fun. I'll keep it tight and say love Cal here. Love Cal is like a super dog, as you gentlemen may pick. Love Cal with Jaden Ott kind of finally fully practicing healthy off the bye. He's only averaged 3.3 yards a carry. And love Javian Thomas. If you're going to beat Miami, you're going to keep Cam Ward on the sideline. You got to grind that clock. All factors pointing to Miami struggling in this game. So I am taking the Bears. So nobody's going to do that to me.
All right. It's interesting, Rece. We always talk about the West Coast teams going east, right? Early kickoff. This one is completely the other way, which we're going to get as Stanford and Cal play home games to the teams in the Eastern time zone. I heard Cam Ward, he said he's actually looking forward to it because he could watch the noon games. He could watch the 3:30 games. But I will tell him in these night games on the West Coast, I'm really interested to see how coaches handle them because as a player, when we used to have to play in them, I mean, you would lose count how many walkthroughs we had. I expect the crowd to be awesome. And the Cal defense, when they got Wilcox, I thought it was an absolute home run hire. And I know they wanted more games won. But, I mean, I played against him in college. He's a phenomenal mind. But I expect Cal to play really well. I believe I don't think they get the full upset. I believe Miami wins, I'll say by 7, so I'll take Cal plus the points.
I think everything wants you to pick Cal, but I think that is mostly emotion of Miami coming on what will be I believe the longest road trip within the continental United States, excluding all of Hawaii's trips to Hawaii, and going from Miami to Berkeley. You have the storyline of Fernando Mendoza, the Bears quarterback, who is from Miami, I believe went to the same high school as Mario Cristobal, one time Yale commit, but switched to Cal. And contrary to popular opinion, he did not get a standing ovation when he walked in to an ethics class after they beat Auburn, but they did get a shout out. All of the emotion surrounds this makes you want to pick Cal. The history that the Bears have, giving up yardage, but forcing turnovers by Cam Ward, different system, different circumstances, but, they've seen him from when he was at Washington State. Makes you lean Cal, which makes it a little too easy. I'm going to go Miami, but Miami with a major scare. And you also have to remember this, and I'm not trying to, stir up anything with our Florida State friends. Cal did lose to Florida State.
Yeah.
And they're the only ones to have done that so far. So I'm going to go with Miami after a scare, perhaps after falling behind in the, let me clean this up. In the sandstorm, we'll say, of the early going, that is sure to be there for the Hurricanes. But I think they survive it and get out of there with their unbeaten record intact. The only game matching ranked opponents on the day is Missouri and Texas A&M. Texas A&M seems to be trending up a little bit. They were able to beat Arkansas last weekend in Arlington. Missouri, on the other hand, has remained perfect, and it feels as if they just haven't played their best game yet, unless this is their best game. Steve, what do you think? Missouri, Texas A&M.
Huge matchup for both teams moving forward. A&M goes into the bye where they've rattled off, 4 straight. If they can make this 5, that's a darn good first, part of your schedule to put on the resume, even though how close they were in the opener when we were there. Elko's really turned things around. The quarterback change, and they played some physical games. Last week was an interesting matchup, and they got the win. When you look at Missouri, I'm not as down on, when I go back and watch them, I'm not as down on them. I know people want, that offense to look like it did last year, so they haven't scored as many points. But that offensive line plays really, really well together, and they're going to have to, because in this matchup, that's the matchup. The Missouri offensive line and how synced they are with that outside zone game with Coach Drink, and Burden's gotten more involved. I think coach would say he wishes his quarterback was more consistent. So I'm going to say Missouri's offense plays well on the road, and the defense steps up. I'll take Missouri here.
So I think we're heading towards a really interesting crossroads for A&M at quarterback right now. Obviously, Marcel Reed has come in and done a really nice job. Right, they've moved the ball and looked, quite frankly, more in sync than they did in the Notre Dame game. Connor Wegman is battling back from that shoulder injury, and at some point, depending on his health, which is getting better, it was kind of a week-to-week injury, and we're getting to the point where A&M may have to make a decision and say, okay, do we want to keep riding Reed? Do we want to keep riding Wegman? Now, Wegman's health is going to determine whether that decision comes this week, next week, etc. But that decision is coming into focus right now, and I don't really have a good answer of what A&M is going to do. So that said, this is a really interesting spot for Missouri. They haven't really been tested. Now, BC jumped on them. Vanderbilt gave them a scare. They haven't really been tested in terms of talent. They have not played a team yet where you're like, okay, they have more talent than them. And I would say Texas A&M does. So on that alone, despite some of the quarterback ambiguity that will hopefully be clearing up later this week and on College GameDay on Saturday, I am going to take Texas A&M just because I think that D-line can slow them down. And if they can get to Brady Cook, it's hard to get the ball to Luther Burden.
Steve, you made a point about Drink would hope that Brady Cook would elevate his play. His QBR is down fairly substantially compared to last year, but it is more in line with the rest of his career. So the question becomes, was last year improvement, which he is capable of building upon and playing better from this point forward, or was last year a bit of an aberration? Right now, only 4 touchdown passes, but only 1 interception, so that's good. And Burden's had 2 consecutive big games. I'm not in the offensive meeting room, Pete. I think the quarterback decision probably should be made. With Marcel Reed, he seems to have given them a boost. And if he flounders at some point because he's younger, and if Wigman's ready, then you can go back. But I wouldn't mess with it right now. And I think this is a really important week for Texas A&M because of the schedule. Everything has fallen really, really well for them. They miss Georgia, they miss Alabama, they miss Ole Miss. They get Missouri, LSU, and Texas at home. You do sneak in, I think, a trip to South Carolina, which probably is a little more daunting than one might have thought before the season started. But if A&M wins this game, whether you believe A&M is really a playoff contender or not, by the math and the record and their place in the standings and the opportunity to play home games to potentially get into the SEC championship game, as we would sit there at the end of the day on the first Saturday in October, they're in it. I'll give the home team the slightest of edges. Other games that we'll pick include a rematch of the national championship game. Well, kind of. We continue on the College GameDay podcast. Back on the College GameDay podcast, and it is a rematch of the helmets and the jerseys that we saw in the national championship game a year ago. Most everything else is different. The people inhabiting those helmets, jerseys, and headsets, in most of the cases on the Michigan-Washington sidelines, are vastly different from the national championship meeting. Washington's a slight favorite in this one. Pete, who do you like?
I'm going to take Michigan. I don't know what the over-under is, but I don't think there will be a lot of points scored in this game. I think Washington's defense with Steve Belichick has done a really good job against more traditional pro-style offenses. Michigan is clearly one-dimensional. I just think Michigan has enough firepower and enough defensive talent to slow down Washington to win a slugfest, and I'm going to get a couple points. I'll take the Wolverines.
Yeah, this is pretty surprising to me. From what I've watched with Washington, I don't think they should be favored. In Michigan, they have their own limitations, as Pete put, offensively. Washington struggled to score against Rutgers, Northwestern, Washington State. I think they're going to have a really, really tough time against Michigan. I like Michigan plus the points.
I like Michigan to win the game outright. UW had 521 yards and 18 points against Rutgers, which means they haven't been able to finish drives. We saw them get stopped in the red zone at the end against Washington State, and trying to do that against that Michigan defensive front is not really a great way to make a living. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go with the Wolverines as well. The Deep South's oldest rivalry, Auburn and Georgia. Auburn has been just beset by turnovers, catastrophic ones. Georgia coming off that emotional loss in Tuscaloosa where they showed great heart and mettle to get back in the game and take the lead at one point. Georgia, a big favorite. Who do you like, Steve?
Georgia to win the game. I think that going back and watching it, they really found it. The game plan was to attack Alabama's secondary. They wore them down. They hit the big plays when they needed. Auburn, one play. So much more buttoned up last week. They played well enough to win, and they still couldn't get it done. Georgia wins. Auburn keeps it closer than 24.
24 is a lot of points. And that's a little bit scary. I don't think there's any question Georgia wins this game. I feel like they might have found themselves in that second half. And, it's hard to say carry momentum out of a loss. But it certainly, that was the first time your eyes popped open. You said, since the Clemson game, and said, wow, Georgia. But again, that was even only the second half of that Clemson game. So they kind of sputtered around in the first half. I don't trust Auburn with the turnovers that Rece mentioned. Their turnover margin is 131st in the country, second to last, basically, in the country. They're turning the ball over twice more than their opponents are game. I mean, it's a crazy stat. It's not a way to win. I think their issues get amplified, not fixed in Athens.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, the -11 tied with Temple. They've lost 15 turnovers, 9 interceptions. Only East Carolina has more of each. But Auburn is 8th in the country. To show you how costly these turnovers have been, Auburn is 8th in the country in yards per play at well over 7.5 yards per play. So I'm not quite ready to say that Georgia is completely fixed. I think they were on the verge of being embarrassed and fought back based on pride. I need to see some more playmakers. I think that I'm going to say, though, that we'll see some of that. I think Georgia's going to win, and I think that Georgia will cover the spread late, barely. So I'm going to go with the Dogs. Iowa and Ohio State, this will be the biggest test for the Buckeyes that they've had up to this point. Iowa's got a good defense again. They're maybe a little bit better on offense. Iowa hasn't won in Columbus. It's been a rare occasion when they've won there. Who do you like in this Big Ten matchup, Pete?
So I like Ohio State to win, but I really think Iowa is a tantalizing cover here. Caleb Johnson, the tailback, I think he's one of the more underappreciated players in the country this year. He's averaging 8.4 yards a carry. He's got 9 touchdowns, and you need to keep that Ohio State offense off the field. So I think Iowa's strengths up front on defense is an Ohio State weakness, and Caleb Johnson can pound that rock and keep things moving. So I think this game gets thrown in the mud. Ohio State wins by 10, but I don't think they come close to cover.
They look great on the road on offense, when they got things going. Iowa hasn't faced anything like this. Took a loss to Iowa State. I think top to bottom, Ohio State is the most talented roster in the country. I'll take Ohio State minus the points.
Ohio State faces an Iowa defense that one of 2 defenses that has yet to allow a rushing touchdown. It will on Saturday. I'm going to take the Buckeyes to cover, not because they blow them out. I'm not convinced Iowa will score more than 10 points in the game. And if they do, then Ohio State will probably score enough to cover. A few more games to get to, including the site of where we assumed College Game Day would be in the offseason when the podcast continues. Before the season started, it appeared to be a virtual lock that College Game Day would be in Tallahassee for Clemson and Florida State. DJ Uiagalelei, the last time these two met in Tallahassee, led his team to victory. At that time, his team was Clemson. Now his team's Florida State. Pete has reported that DJU will not be able to go in this one, and things just don't appear to be getting any better for the Seminoles as they get ready to take on the Tigers. Steve, who do you like in this one?
I got to see more from Florida State. I think Clemson's got this thing rolling. The Governor's off on offense. Klubnik's throwing the deep ball, that's what I mean. Just felt like they never pulled the trigger with that. He's gotten real comfortable running the football. They got dudes up front that are better than Florida State's dudes. I like Florida State, Clemson minus the points on the road.
So which plaintiff do I want, Rece? Is that what you want to know? Do I want plaintiff one
Which
or
one who would like
two?
to exit the ACC do you think will exit this game with a victory?
The Grant of Rights Bowl? Is this what this is?
You're just giving me material for Saturday morning because I know you won't say it on TV, but I might. Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
You might.
I'm just trying to be a good teammate, Rece. Try to get some giggles out of the crowd in Berkeley pre-dawn there. So, I think Cal Twitter would enjoy a good legal jab at the ACC plaintiffs. I'm taking Clemson for all the reasons Steve said. Florida State has just not earned any confidence. Brock Glenn's going to go for the first time. There's not great empirical evidence of what he can do, and I trust Mike Norvell enough to know that if he had seen enough from Brock Glenn in practice at this point that he was an upgrade, he would have moved to him already.
What 100%. I mean, that's the thing that we miss. Everybody wants to see, it's like somebody do something. Somebody change the quarterback, do something. And, Florida State hasn't done a lot. We're going to go Clemson to cover quite easily. And our deep cut game is on Friday night. UNLV, change quarterbacks, NIL situation, no problem. They keep rolling on. They're undefeated, and now they get Syracuse and Kyle McCord. Home game for the Running Rebels on Friday night. Pete, who do you like? Vegas favored in this game.
Well, I kind of have to roll with Vegas. I feel like they are hot right now. Hajj Malik Williams, had just an unbelievable. You could argue it was an upgrade over Matthew Sluka. Considering the caliber of opponent within their league and the way that they played. I think it'll be a shootout. Syracuse runs the ball poorly. But has one of the top 3 passing offense in the country with Kyle McCord. So the rock is going to be slung around Allegiant on Friday night, and I think UNLV finds a way to win.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when you look at UNLV and they only threw the ball 16 times and scored 59 points against Fresno. So that I still think they're working through some things. I think it's going to be a really fun game. I'm not sure about the scoring. As far as total goes, I'll say UNLV wins, but Syracuse keeps it inside the number.
I'm gonna break stride. I'm gonna go with Syracuse. I think Syracuse has been tested a little bit. We saw them play well against Georgia Tech. I'm going to say that Syracuse goes on the road, gets the win, and what will be a highly entertaining game and another strong performance from Kyle McCord. Appreciate you listening to the College GameDay podcast. Remember to subscribe so you never miss a single episode, or download wherever you prefer to get your podcast. For the great Stanford Steve, Stanford alum, headed to Berkeley, and Pete Thamel, who turned his back on Syracuse, I am merely Rece Davis.